Nicole, hey, how are you? I'm going to do a quick overview of your controller. I just pulled it up and I figured I'd share my screen. And I'm going to just basically take a look at what you have. And I'm going to try to talk out loud as I'm maneuvering on your programming and checking things out. And that way you can learn from me. And I don't know really how this is going to go, but we're going to experiment. And I'm going to talk out loud as I walk through your controller. So what I'm going to do first, though, is take a look at the map and just do I guess we'll just look at this as like a training video. I'm going to walk you through everything. So we're going to start on the company view. This is what the software looks like when you first log in. You can, see the whole United States as Nate continues to build rooftop projects all over the country. You can use the map view to drill down. So in this case, we're going to click on the site. Then we're going to drop down to the site level. And for some people, they may have multiple controllers on a site. They might have 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. They might have any number of controllers on a site. And that's why we allow for this option. For most rooftops, they'll just have one controller. So the next step is to click on the controller and then drill down to the controller. So this is where we have, and it looks like you've already done, or someone has done a nice job setting this up. You've got your zone pins, zone 4, for instance. By clicking on it, you can start, stop, test, learn flow, chart, see the program it's in, everything about that zone, and as well for the corresponding moisture sensor. So there is moisture sensor number 4, which is buried in zone 4. So that's how the maps work. Next thing we're going to do is click over to quick view. This is the most helpful screen because this kind of gives you a snapshot of what the controller status currently is, if you have any messages, moisture percentage, etc. So first thing that catches my attention is zone 5 is red. And there's also a message for zone 5. It says open solenoid. So what that means is that either the solenoid has failed with doubt because this is a new system, although it's possible, but an open solenoid means that the splice has come undone. So either the wire has come out of the controller, again, not likely, or somewhere the wire is disconnected. Keep in mind, this is likely not the common wire on the system. Otherwise, all the zones would be red. It's probably just this one splice. So my recommendation would be to check that splice. If the splice is good, then check or replace the solenoid. Okay, that's the messages, the status. You have 5 moisture sensors, which range in moisture percentage from 7 to 11, which they should. That you have different exposures. It's probably come differently around each sensor, so they oftentimes will read different values. So it's important not to compare one sensor to another sensor because the environment that it's in could be different. It could technically have the same amount of water, but how that soil is pressed around the sensor can affect the way the sensor is. So the important thing is to look at each individual sensor as an individual sensor and its data over time, but not to compare it to the numbers of another sensor. Okay, hope that makes sense. And then you also have your temperature here. And this is kind of interesting. You've got about 16-degree temperature difference from this sensor at 75 degrees. And this is also interesting. It's cooler and there's more moisture. So perhaps this zone or the sensor placement is in the shade, which is allowing more moisture to remain or be retained in the soil. And this sensor, which is the warmest, has the least amount of moisture. Again, I love it when the data makes sense, and that totally makes sense. Where it's warmer, there's less moisture. Where it's cooler, there's more moisture. Love it. All right, so now let's take a look at this in a visual format or on a graph. And to do that, we're going to click the hamburger menu, as we call it, up here. We're going to click down to reports. And what I like to look at is called the zone runtime report because it allows you to see the controller's programmed runtime and the moisture, so you can kind of see the effect of the watering. So let's take a look at that. And then you've got some options for the range of data that you want to look at. You can click this gear and then you can choose the zone. So let's just choose zone 1 and then we'll go ahead and select moisture sensor number 1. And if you want to rename these, you can do that up in the devices tab, then edit the zone or edit the moisture sensor, and you can put in a different description if there's something else that would make sense to you, like north, south, east, west, etc. Then we'll grab an interval, and I want to look at 1 month so we can see a good snapshot of information. And then if you want to look at historical data, like last fall when you guys installed this, you just open up time and date, you go to the calendar, and then you can go backwards and select a different month. But for this case, what we're going to do is just look at the past 30 days. We're going to click run. And there we go. So the first thing I notice is that there's no runtime, which that's an indication to me that this controller has never run a program on automatic mode ever. You may have run it manually, but it hasn't run in the automatic fashion, or we would have blue bars for runtime. So the only thing we're looking at here is moisture, as indicated in the green, and moisture either goes up or it goes down, right? So here we can see a spike on April 21st, which is either a rain event or somebody doing some hand watering, manual watering, etc. over that sensor. And then we've got some slow dry down. And then what's kind of interesting is I can tell that there is little spikes here. And it's almost like, I mean, again, you could have watered this by hand, by manually opening the valve or just running a manual program. Or right in the morning there, the water is sort of like lifting up off the roof surface. And that's possible too, because water can move in all directions. And if it's getting hot and the sun is coming out, there could be a little bit of rise, from the moisture coming off the rooftop up to the sensor level. So that's how you look at moisture data over time. Next thing we're going to look at is I want to look at your programming. And I quickly did make a test video for you, or a test program. But we're going to open up your program first. And I noticed that it's disabled. So that's a clear indication that it hasn't run automatically because it's disabled. So by clicking edit, you can change all the functionality, and enable is not checked. And then, I like how you've got the cycle and soak set up. That's really important on a rooftop to pulse the soil profile, because the roof media doesn't hold a lot of moisture. And so if you ran it for 60 minutes all at once, it could just come out and go down the drain. You want to pulse it, let it wait, pulse it, let it wait. So you can try to get good lateral capillary movement in that soil profile. And then what I noticed is you actually have two start conditions. You have a timed start, 8 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Okay, that would trigger the 60-minute runtime. Then you also have a moisture start. And keep in mind, the way it's set up here, you have two separate conditions. And that's what I'm going to show you. You have both the start time, or the day, or the time and day, and then the moisture. So if it's below 26%, it's also going to run for 60 minutes. So what this means is it's not likely your rooftop will ever get to 26%, because that media is not designed to hold that much water. So it'll just water, and that'll say, hey, I'm still not at 26% water, and it could just run all the time. So I'm glad this program's disabled. I'd recommend coming in here, probably deleting out this condition, and then I'll show you how I set up your test program, which is sort of an if-then. So you really want just your one start condition, which would be potentially moisture. Again, I think right now I would just run it on time, get the roots established, get comfortable with the system. And then you can run what we call a moisture start. If less than something like 15%, you can look at the graph, look at the historical information, pick a number that makes sense to you. So if it's less than 15% and it's either 8 a.m. or 2 p.m., it will water for the amount of time that's programmed, 60 minutes, right here, 60 minutes. But that's what's going to trigger it, just moisture. So if the moisture is ever above 50%, it's off, it's off, it's off. It only waters when it gets to 15%. And then I've chosen to give it a start time, 8 a.m. or 2 p.m. You can just let it water on demand like this. And that will say, if it's ever below 15%, we water for 60 minutes. It doesn't matter what day of the week or what time of day. It's just going to water on demand. And that's totally acceptable. The only thing you might find on the rooftop is that these plants don't really need that much water. It's not like grass. You may be able to go a week or two between waterings. So some of this you guys will have to play with. On demand probably would water every day and use a ton of water that's not necessary. So I would probably go to a daily calendar, maybe start out every day. But again, it's only if it's below 15%. Let's go back to your Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Pick a start time. Let's just say default 8 a.m. Now you're guaranteed only one watering a day maximum, because even if it's below 15%, if it's 2 p.m., it's not going to water till tomorrow at 8 a.m. because it can only water at 8 a.m. and only if the moisture is below 15%. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Hope this helps. I'll give you a call right now and send you this video. And then I would probably just start checking in on it every day, looking at the graph, trying to make sense of runtime, moisture levels, etc., until you get more comfortable with it. And then it can just run in full automation mode. And that's all there is to it. Thanks so much. Cheers.